The day a $70 DNA kit told me my father wasn't my father, I thought it had to be a glitch. By the time I realized it wasn't a mistake, I had already blown a hole through 3 generations of my family. My ex-husband was no longer my children's real grandfather. My children were suddenly half Italian instead of mostly Irish, and the man I'd loved and grieved as my dad turned into a stranger with my last name. The only person who knew the truth was my 80-year-old mother, who looked me in the eye and said, "If you tell them everything, you'll kill me faster than any disease." If that makes your chest feel tight, you're not alone. Before I tell you what happened when I tried to choose between protecting my mother's secret and giving my children the truth about our family, do me a small favor. If you like having long, honest family stories playing while you cook, clean, or lie in bed at night, tap the like button and subscribe so YouTube knows to bring you back to Aunt Ruby's voice every week. I'll keep a chair open at the kitchen table for you. Now, let me tell you how a silly Christmas gift turned into the day my whole identity slipped off like an old coat. My name is Linda. I'm 67 years old. I live in a little town outside Columbus, Ohio, and until last year, I could have told you exactly who I was without thinking. Mostly Irish, bit of German, I'd say, like it was a recipe. Daughter of Frank and Margaret O'Donnell, 3 kids, 4 grandkids, 2 bad knees, and a good sense of humor. My ex-husband, Mike, liked to joke that our kids were corn-fed Ohio mutts. He said it with pride. We didn't have anything exotic. We had family picnics, potato salad, and a lot of people named some version of John. My father, Frank, died when I was 49. Heart attack at the grocery store. One minute he was picking out a cantaloupe, the next minute he was gone. For years after, I could still smell him whenever I walked past a shelf of motor oil. He always smelled faintly like gasoline and peppermint gum. He was not a perfect man. He had a temper, he drank more than he should have when I was little, and he once told my sister she looked thick in her prom dress, which she never forgave. But he was my father. That word was glued to his face in my mind. My mother, Margaret, is still alive. 80, sharp as broken glass when she wants to be, soft as a worn sweater when she doesn't. She lives alone in the same little brick house they bought in 1962, with the same ugly brown carpet she swore she'd replace when Dad retired. My kids adore her. To them, she's Nana Maggie, the one who always has cookies in the freezer and never says no to one more episode before bed. So when my middle daughter Katie brought up DNA tests at Christmas and said, "We should all do it together, it'll be fun," I didn't think for a second that we were lighting a fuse. I thought we were buying party favors. It started as a joke. We were sitting around my living room, the fake tree still up, wrapping paper half stuffed into a trash bag. The grandkids were on the floor with their new Lego sets. The dog was asleep under the coffee table. Katie pulled out a stack of rectangular boxes and handed them around like Oprah. Okay, I did a thing," she said. "Everybody gets a DNA kit." My youngest, Ben, groaned. "What, are you trying to prove Dad's mailman theory?" he said. "Relax, I already know you're my brother," Katie said. "I just thought it'd be cool to know exactly where we're from. Like, are we actually Irish or did Grandma lie?" From the recliner, my mother sniffed. "I did not lie," she said. "We're Irish. Our people came over with nothing but a suitcase and a dream." "Yeah, well, Ancestry.com says half of Ohio came over that way," Katie said. "I just want the percentages, and maybe some surprise Italian. Everyone on TikTok finds out they're a little bit Italian." We laughed. We swabbed our cheeks. We sealed the little tubes like we were doing a science project at school. Even my mother did one, eventually. "I don't need a test to tell me who I am," she grumbled, but she still spit into the tube after I told her it would help confirm the history. Looking back, that was the first time she looked nervous. It was quick, a tiny flicker around the eyes. Then it was gone, and she was back to being the queen of eye rolls. "If this thing says I'm anything other than Irish and stubborn, I want my money back," she said. We put the little boxes in the mail the next day. And then we forgot about them. Life rolled on. School drop-offs, weather reports, Mike texting from Florida where he lives with his new wife and their boat. I didn't think about my DNA again until the email dinged on my phone 2 months later while I was in line at Kroger. Your results, it said. I clicked out of curiosity, not fear. That came later. The first thing I saw was a colorful little pie chart with percentages. 42% Irish, some English and German, but the biggest slice, in bold, 38% Southern Italian and Sicilian. I frowned. Southern Italian? I stared at it like it might rearrange itself if I squinted hard enough. I scrolled down. DNA matches, it said. At the top was Katie, parent/child. Then Ben and my oldest, Laura, close family. So far, so good. Then another name I didn't recognize, marked close family, possible half-sibling. Half-sibling? I felt my heart do a small, weird jump. A woman named Carla M. from New Jersey, with a little picture of a middle-aged face that, if I looked too long, started to look like mine around the eyes. "Excuse me," the cashier said. I blinked up at her, realizing I had been standing there, holding my phone and a carton of eggs for longer than was normal. "Yes, sorry," I muttered. "Just got some surprising news." On the drive home, my brain started stacking possibilities like unstable boxes. Maybe it was a glitch. Maybe this Carlo was actually some third cousin and the label was wrong. Maybe my father had some secret life before he met my mother, some fling that resulted in a child. The idea made me a little nauseous, but it fit better than some of the other possibilities. The other possibility was that my father wasn't my father. I shoved that box to the back of my mental closet and slammed the door. When I got home, Katie was already calling. "Mom, did you see? We're Italian," she shouted into the phone. I knew it. I always felt drawn to pasta. I laughed automatically, but it sounded wrong. "Did you see anything else?" I asked. "Yeah, I've got 100 cousins apparently. It says I matched with some woman named Carla as a half-aunt, like she's a half-sister of yours or Dad's. I texted Dad. He says he's never even been to New Jersey." I sank down onto a kitchen chair. "What does Nana's say?" she added. "Did you look?" I hadn't. I just walked in the door. I'll check later. "Okay, call me when you do. This is juicy. We might have mafia relatives." I hung up and opened the email with my mother's results. The same Italian percentage, the same list of relatives, and no genetic link between her and the man I had called my father for 67 years. Instead, there was a big fat unknown where his name should have been. I sat there, staring at the screen while the refrigerator hummed and the clock on the wall ticked and the dog snored by my feet. It felt like someone had quietly walked into my house and rearranged all the furniture while I slept. Everything was still technically there, but nothing was in the same place. The next person I called was not my daughter. It was my sister, Joan, who lives 2 hours away and knows how to keep her voice steady while other people fall apart. "Say it slowly," she said, after I babbled through the DNA results. I did. When I finished, there was a long, "Do you remember that summer Mom sent us to Aunt Claire's for a month?" she finally asked. I thought back. I was 8, Joan was 12. We went to Cincinnati, stayed with Mom's older sister while Mom helped Grandpa after his surgery. Except when we came back, Grandpa seemed surprised to see us. "I thought you were here last week," he'd said. Joan and I had laughed about his confusion for years. Now, suddenly, it didn't seem funny. "What are you saying?" I whispered. "I'm saying," Joan replied, her voice careful, "that if you have a half-sibling in New Jersey and Mom has Italian DNA we never heard about, then maybe Grandpa wasn't the one she was helping that summer." I swallowed hard. "You think—" "I think we don't know the whole story," she said, "and there's only one person left who can tell it. My mother." I went to see her that afternoon. She was at her kitchen table doing a crossword, a cup of tea by her elbow. The same table where she'd helped me with homework, peeled potatoes, scolded me for rolling my eyes, said grace 1,000 times. She looked up when I came in, eyes sharp as always. You look like you saw a ghost, she said. In a way, I said. She watched me for a long moment, then folded her crossword and set it aside. Sit, she said. Tell me. I showed her the printed DNA charts, my hands shaking slightly. She adjusted her glasses, scanned the pages, and did not flinch once. I see we're part Italian, she said finally. That explains why I've always liked good sauce. Mom, I said, my voice cracking, it says Dad wasn't my father. That man was your father in every way that mattered, she said calmly. That's not what the test says, I replied. There's some woman in New Jersey who shows up as my half-sister. You share DNA with her father, not Dad. Do you understand what I'm saying? She took off her glasses and rubbed the bridge of her nose. I'm old, not stupid, she said. Of course I understand. Then, is it true? I whispered. Did you have an affair? Did Dad know? Does Joan know? Did anybody know except you? My voice rose on each question until I sounded like a kettle screeching. For the first time that day, she looked small. She sat back in her chair, the light from the window catching the age spots on her hands. It was 1955, she said quietly. Your father and I were not good. He was drinking a lot then, staying out, saying things he couldn't unsay. I waited. There was a man at the factory, she continued. His name was Anthony. He was kind. He listened. He made me feel like I was 20 again instead of a tired, disappointed wife with a baby and bad wallpaper. Tears pricked my eyes. Are you telling me I'm the result of some affair? I asked. She flinched just slightly at the word. I'm telling you, she said, that I made a mistake that lasted one night and changed everything, and that your father came home a month later, sober as a judge, begging for another chance, and I decided to pretend that you were his, and he agreed. Agreed? I repeated. He knew the timing was off, she said. He wasn't an idiot, but he loved me. And when I told him I was pregnant, he chose to believe you were his. He chose to be your father. He signed the papers at the hospital. He changed your diapers. He worked double shifts so you could have piano lessons. That man earned the word father every day. My throat felt like it was closing. And you never told me? I said. What good would it have done? She snapped, some of her old fire returning. To what end? To make you see him as a stranger? To make you go looking for some man who never wanted to know your name? Anthony left town before you were born. He had his own family. He made it clear he wasn't interested in extras. Extras? Like I was a side dish he hadn't ordered. I pressed my fingers hard into my knees under the table. Do you know where he is now? I asked. Dead, last I heard, she said. Cancer, years ago. His wife called me, if you can believe it. She found a letter he'd kept, one I wrote telling him about you and saying I wouldn't bother him again. She wanted a picture. I said no. You said no? I whispered. Yes, I said no, she snapped. I had a husband, a family, a life. Stirring all that up would have helped no one. I thought about the blank line on my DNA chart where my father's name should have been. Mom, my kids did these tests too, I said. They can see all this. They're already texting, asking questions. What do you want me to tell them? She looked me dead in the eye. Tell them nothing, she said. Tell them the tests are wrong. Tell them we don't trust computers more than we trust history. Tell them their grandfather was Frank O'Donnell, and that's all they need to know. Mom, I am 80 years old, she said. I do not have the strength for a family trial over something that happened before most of them were born. If you tell them the whole story, it will kill me faster than anything the doctors are worried about. The words hung in the air between us. It will kill me. And behind them, another sentence that she didn't say, but I heard anyway. You will be the one who killed me. For a few days, I tried to pretend I could do what she wanted. I told Katie and Ben and Laura that the test didn't match some records, and we were waiting to see. They didn't buy it. "Mom, I'm literally looking at the data," Katie said over FaceTime. "We're all matching some Italian line we've never heard of. Nana's got big chunks of Sicily in her chart. This isn't a typo." Ben forwarded me a Reddit thread about NPEs, not parent expected, and how common they are. Statistically, there are a ton of people who aren't related to who they think they are. It's nothing to be ashamed of. I mean, for us, might be awkward for Nana. Laura, my oldest, was the quietest. She just said, "If you know something, I want to know it too. I'm not a child anymore, Mom." I lay awake at night, staring at the cracks in the ceiling, feeling like I was being pulled apart by invisible strings. On one side, my mother, begging me to keep the secret that had been the foundation of my life. On the other, my adult children, demanding the truth as if it were their birthright. And in the middle, me, the person who suddenly didn't know who she was anymore. Everything came to a head on a Sunday afternoon. We'd planned a family dinner at my house. Roast chicken, mashed potatoes, green beans with too much butter. My children arrived with their spouses and kids, carrying desserts and paper plates, and that vibrating curiosity you can feel in the air before a big conversation. My mother came too, clad in her Sunday best, lipstick on, hair sprayed into submission. We sat, we ate, we pretended to talk about work and school and the weather. Finally, Katie put her fork down. "Okay," she said, "we have to talk about the DNA thing." Ben and Laura nodded. My mother's jaw tightened. "I told your mother," she began. "With respect, Nana," Laura said, "this is our history too. If there's something we need to know, I'd rather hear it from you two than from some website or from a stranger who turns out to be our aunt." The room went very quiet. Aunt?" my mother repeated, voice sharp. "Yeah," Katie said. "There's a woman named Carla who matches as a half-something to Mom and us. She messaged me. She said she grew up in New Jersey, and her father was a factory worker from Columbus who disappeared when she was little. Sound familiar?" My mother's face drained of color. "I told you not to answer messages from strangers," she said. "She's not a stranger," Ben said. "She's family. That's literally what the chart says." My heart was beating so loud I could hear it in my ears. "Enough," I said, more sharply than I intended. "Everybody stop." They all looked at me. In that moment, I realized there was no way to keep my hands clean. Whatever I did next would hurt someone. There was no version where I walked away as the good guy. Maybe you've been there too, standing in a room full of people you love, knowing you're about to break someone's heart no matter which way you turn. I took a deep breath. "Okay," I said, "here's the truth." I didn't give them every detail. Some things are still mine, but I told them enough. That my parents' marriage had been rough when my mother was young, that there was a man named Anthony at the factory, that I was the result of one night that both of them pretended never happened, that my father, Frank, knew the math and chose me anyway. "Chosen father," Laura said softly, the words catching. Ben swore under his breath. Katie cried. My mother stared at a spot on the wall like she was watching a movie only she could see. "So Grandpa wasn't biologically our grandpa," Ben said finally. "No," I said, "but he was your grandfather in every way that counts. He changed your diapers, he took you fishing, he left you $10 every birthday in a card with the same joke about inflation." "How long have you known?" Katie asked. "About a week and a half," I said. "You weren't going to tell us?" she demanded. "I was trying to figure out," I snapped, "and I was trying to respect your grandmother's wishes." All eyes turned to my mother. She sat up straighter, her mouth a thin line. "I did what I thought was best for my family," she said. "It was a different time. Your grandfather and I made a decision, and we stuck to it." You lied to everyone for 60+ years, Katie said, her voice shaking. Watch your tone, my mother snapped. Maggie, Laura said gently, can you at least understand why we'd be upset? Half of our medical history, our heritage, our sense of self, this changes all of that. My mother's eyes flashed. Does it? She shot back. Did anyone grow up hungry because of this? Did anyone go without love, without a roof over their head, without schooling, without Sunday dinners? You have all spent your entire lives being loved by a man you called granddad. That is the history that matters. It also matters that I've been telling doctors for years that heart disease runs in our family from the O'Donnell side, Laura said. What if that's wrong? What if there's some other condition we don't know about because no one told the truth? Silence again. I understand you feel deceived, my mother said finally, the words awkward in her mouth. But try to see it from where I sat. I was a young woman with a baby and a drunk husband and a mistake I couldn't undo. There were no support groups, no podcasts telling me to live my truth. There was scandal and shame, and a father telling me he'd never speak to me again if I ruined the family name. She looked at me then, and for the first time, I saw her not as the all-powerful mother of my childhood, but as a scared 20-something trapped in a tiny town with no exits. I chose to be respectable, she said softly. I chose to keep my family intact. Maybe it was wrong, but it's done. And I won't sit here at 80 and have my entire life put on trial. My children shifted uncomfortably. Katie wiped her cheeks. So what now? She asked. We just pretend this didn't happen? No, I said. We can't pretend. The genie's out of the bottle. But we get to decide what we do with it. How? Ben demanded. We have a half-aunt out there who wants to know us. We have a whole other family line. We have questions. Then we answer the ones we can, I said, and we accept that some won't get answered. I looked at my mother. I won't cut you out, I said. I won't turn my back on you. But I also won't lie to my kids. They deserve to know where they come from, even if that story is messy. So you choose them, she said, voice flat. I choose the truth, I replied, and I choose you, at the same time. It doesn't have to be either or. She looked unconvinced. Truth has never been as simple for women as you young people think it is, she muttered. Mom, I'm 67, I said. She snorted. Young enough, she said. In the weeks that followed, everything felt off balance. My children did what modern people do. They researched. They messaged Carla, they verified details, they saw old photos of Anthony that made my stomach lurch, my nose, my eyes, on a stranger's face. They had a Zoom call with her. I joined, reluctantly, the laptop perched on my kitchen table like a portal. Carla cried when she saw me. I always hoped there was more of him out there, she said. My mother wouldn't tell me much, just that he went back to Ohio and never came back. I thought maybe he'd forgotten me. He forgot us too, I said before I could stop myself. We talked for an hour. We compared medical histories. We discovered we both get migraines when the weather changes and have an irrational hatred of licorice. When the call ended, I closed the laptop and leaned my forehead against the cool surface. I didn't feel like I'd found a missing piece of myself. I felt like I'd opened a closet and had a whole other family fall out on my head. My mother refused to be part of any of it. I've lived long enough with this story, she said. I don't need a sequel. We argued about it once more, then I let it go. I visited her. We talked about my dad the way we always had. We didn't mention DNA. Sometimes loving old people means letting them keep some of their illusions. Sometimes, loving your children means refusing to keep yours. I walked a narrow beam between those truths for months. The strangest part of all of it was how it made me look at my father. Not the man who supplied the DNA, the man who took me to Little League and taught me how to parallel park. In some ways, learning he wasn't biologically mine made his love feel bigger. He didn't just show up because he had to. He showed up because he chose to. Over and over. There's a lot of talk these days about real parents and blood, but sometimes the realest thing about family is the paperwork people never see. Late night feedings, bills paid, sacrifices made quietly. One afternoon, I went to the cemetery and sat on the little bench by his headstone. "Hey, Dad," I said. The word felt the same in my mouth as it always had. "I found out something weird," I admitted, "about biology, about who else is in our tree. Mom kept a big secret, and I'm trying to forgive her for that. I'm also trying to forgive myself for feeling like a stranger to my own story." The wind rustled the fake flowers someone had stuck in the ground. "I just want you to know," I whispered, "that whatever the test says, you're still my father. You're the one who showed up. You're the one who loved me. I'm sorry I ever let a pie chart make me doubt that, even for a second." A bird landed on the stone, cocked its head at me, then flew away again. It wasn't a sign, but it felt like a little nod. If you're still here, listening to an old woman ramble about DNA and bad decisions, maybe you're going through something like this yourself. Maybe you did one of those tests as a joke and found out your dad isn't your dad, or your grandfather isn't your grandfather, or your whole idea of what we are, Irish, German, Italian, whatever, was built on someone's shame, someone's fear, someone's survival. Here's what I've learned, sitting in the middle of a family tree that looks more like a vine someone spliced in the dark. First, the truth doesn't care whether we're ready for it. It just shows up, sometimes in a little plastic tube, sometimes in a phone call, sometimes in a half-sister's eyes on a computer screen. Second, our identities are bigger than the worst choices our parents made. My mother made a decision in 1955 that changed everything, yes, but she packed my lunches, sat through my school plays, held my hand when I gave birth. Those things are part of my history too. Third, blood matters, and so does behavior. The man whose DNA I carry never met me. The man who changed my tires and paid for my braces did. When people ask who my father was, I still say Frank O'Donnell without hesitation. Fourth, you don't owe anyone access to your pain just because they share your genes. When Carla reached out, I chose to open the door a little. If she had been cruel or manipulative, I would have been allowed to close it again. Family is not a free pass to hurt people indefinitely. And finally, if you're the older generation sitting on a secret like this, ask yourself what you're really protecting. Are you protecting your children, or are you protecting your own image of yourself? My mother spent decades telling herself she'd done the noble thing. Maybe, in some ways, she did. But the cost of that nobility landed on my plate in a different century with different rules. When my kids look at me now, I want them to see someone who, when faced with the chance to hide, chose to be honest, even if that honesty was messy and late. So, if a little box of spit has blown open your family story, know this: you are not alone. You are not the first person to look at a set of results and feel the ground shift. You are not wrong for wanting answers, and you are not obligated to hate the people who built your life on silence. You get to hold more than one truth at once. My father was not my father, and he was my father, completely. My mother lied to me, and my mother also loved me. My children deserved the truth, and my mother also deserved a softer landing in her last years than the world gave her when she was young. Some days, those truths sit together peacefully at my kitchen table. Some days, they argue like relatives at Thanksgiving. But they're all mine now. And, in a strange way, owning all of them has made me feel more real, not less. If you're wrestling with your own results, I hope you give yourself permission to grieve the story you thought you had while still loving the people who did the best they could with the tools they had. And if you're an older woman like me, sitting there thinking about a secret you've kept for 50 years, just remember, the truth will still be the truth after you're gone. The only thing you get to choose is whether your children hear it from a website or from your own trembling, honest mouth.